I apologize, Commander Bailey, for the craziness, but we should be all good now.
Okay, all right, so retirement pay. Retirement pay is calculated on base pay only. And as a recap, it's calculated based on your eligible retirement system. So as we reviewed last week, final pay, high 3, or sometimes called high 36. And then we have the redux, which is often referred to the career status bonus retirement plan. So there are currently 3 retirement plans in existence. Come 2018, we're going to hear more about the BRS, the blended retirement system, and the career status bonus will go away. So, takeaway, base pay is only used to calculate retirement pay. Next slide, please. Okay, so retirement pay is subject to federal and state taxation. So, get out your map. Discuss with your family where you want to move. I advise people to please check with the state taxation department of your state. Call them up. First, find out when does the state consider you to be a resident after you retire. If you are from Texas and you're working in Maryland and you retire in Maryland and stay in Maryland, I guarantee you that Maryland is going to hold out their hand and say, hey, we want some of that retirement income and we want to tax it. So be mindful that when you are ready to retire, you're going to be given a retired pay worksheet where you're going to tell the government what federal taxes you want them to take out. Married, single, additional withholdings. You're going to tell them. For the state taxation, currently we are utilizing the U.S. Coast Guard for retired pay for PHS officers. The Coast Guard has a relationship with certain states to send state taxes on your behalf, but you will tell them exactly the state and the dollar amount. They will not calculate the dollar amount for you. Currently, PHS compensation does a great job of doing that for us as active duty members, but when you retire, you will tell the government exactly how much money you want them to send the state in which you're going to be living in. Now, if you're going to live in a state that does not tax retired income, then you would leave the state blank and the dollar amount blank. But be mindful. Again, we are uniformed service. If it says military service or armed service, pay close attention, okay? Now, you can always change the federal or state taxation during retirement. In fact, you can pay the state directly. You don't have to have PHS compensation or the U.S. Coast Guard or whatever entity we're going to be using to pay PHS retirees. You can pay the state at the end of the year yourself. So this is completely voluntary for the state taxes. Next slide, please. Okay, trust but verify. Here are some states without income taxes: Alaska, New Hampshire, Texas, Florida, South Dakota, Washington, Nevada, Tennessee, Wyoming. Please verify with the state taxation department in your state. So those are some states to think about. Next slide, please. Okay, so state income tax. These are states that exempt military retired pay. Okay? We have Alabama, Louisiana, New Jersey, Oregon, with certain qualifications have to be met for Oregon, Hawaii, Ohio, Massachusetts, New York, same thing, certain qualifications are required. Illinois, Kentucky has some special requirements. Michigan, North Carolina has some special qualifications. We also have Kansas, Wisconsin, Mississippi, and Pennsylvania has some qualifications that must be met. So again, remember, you have 365 days to initiate your household goods move upon retirement and complete your move. So this is one item that you must be thinking about in the event that you want to move. Remember, you don't have to go back to your home of record. You don't have to go back to where you were called to active duty from. As a retiree, you have the privilege and the entitlement of going anywhere within the USA. Now, we do have some retirees from time to time that want to move overseas. And what the shipping company will do is take you to the furthest point. So whether that's California, whether that's Maine, they'll take you to the northest point, for example, and you would pick up the difference and continue your household goods transportation. Next slide, please. Just a friendly reminder that we, PHS, does not have the authority to move your household goods overseas. So when it's your turn, you need to ensure that you know who your agency travel POC is. You're going to work through your Commission Corps liaison to make sure that you connect with that person. You want to know their name. You want to know the backup person in case it's your time to initiate your move and that person is on leave. So you always want to have a backup. You want to know who your Commission Corps liaison backup person is. Because in the event that you need to have your orders amended to change a city or state of your home of selection, you will need to contact separations and your agency to coordinate this. Be mindful that your agency is responsible for reimbursement for household goods moves. So you want to follow their instructions. Just like you PCS during your active duty career, the only difference now is that the agency in which you are leaving is picking up the tab, not the gaining agency, because you are retiring. Okay, Social Security. If we have time to add to the webinar, we actually have a Social Security presentation, and it's probably available on the Social Security website. They've done a great job of updating their resources online. So I would encourage you to log in to the Social Security website, and if you have not created a login and password, I would encourage you to do so. They're no longer mailing statements at the frequency that they used to, but you can actually go online and kind of see what you would get in the event when you are eligible for Social Security. Okay, so Social Security is not deducted from retired pay. When you're eligible, you're going to collect full retirement pay and full Social Security. So, facilitators on the phone, please remind me to add maybe a second subset of Social Security presentations in the future if we have time. If we don't have time to add it to the series, I will email it to all of you, or I'll ask one of the facilitators to share with you. But go to the Social Security website. They probably actually have a presentation online. Next slide, please. Okay, so retirement pay allotment. So right now through PHS compensation, there are a few things that we can create an allotment for. But as a retiree, you have a lot more options to create allotments for. I listed some of the examples. So TRICARE Dental, because you're going to pay them monthly, and typically they would like to have an allotment come out of your retirement pay. COA, if you would like to continue to be a member of COA and you currently have your dues come out of your active duty paycheck, as a retiree, you can create an allotment to have the COA dues come out of your retirement check. As long as long-term care insurance premiums, TRICARE medical premiums, VGLI in the event that anyone converts their SGLI to VGLI. So start thinking about maybe the things that you absolutely may want to have come out of your retired paycheck. You will have a lot more options than you do right now. Next slide, please.
Just real quickly want to remind everybody on the phone to be on mute if you're not asking a question. Thanks.
Okay, cost of living adjustment. Completely contingent on Congress. No different as a retiree. So In the event that Congress awards a cost of living adjustment, retirees will also receive a pay raise. Typically, annually, it's around December 31st. Here's just from 2013, the COLA increase was 1.7%. Reminder, this does not happen every year. Sometimes we don't get a COLA increase, but just a friendly reminder for retirees that in the event Congress awards it, you will benefit from this. Remember last week when I talked about those members that took the $30,000 bonus at year 15, which changed your retirement plan to the Redux or the Career Status Bonus? Remember, if you did that, anytime Congress gives a COLA increase for retirees, you get half. You get half of the amount that Congress awards. So, for example, if Congress gave 2%, you get 1% for the rest of your life. Just a friendly reminder. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, for those on the phone that might be retiring this year or perhaps next year, reminder that we are currently contracting the PHS retirement to the U.S. Coast Guard. They've been doing this for us for 4 years. In the event that they ever bring the retired pay back in-house to PHS compensation, you will be notified. But here's the contact information for the Pay Processing Center in Topeka, Kansas. So currently, all the retirements that have come through headquarters the last 4 years, we are a partner with Coast Guard to ensure that your retired pay account gets established and that you get paid on time. So this concludes this particular segment of the presentation. I'm happy to take questions on anything that we just discussed. The next presentation, I believe I'm going to talk a little bit about TSP, and if we have time, I actually provided a list of the high 3 multiples so that you can have a quick visual of how to calculate your retired pay using years and months. I'll take questions regarding this presentation right now. As we take a few more minutes to take any questions, ma'am, you can go ahead and go to the TSP presentation, please. Any questions about retirement pay, what gets taxed, what doesn't get taxed, federal, state? Any questions? The takeaway message is that if you are not paying state taxes because you are away from your home of record, please ensure that when it's your turn to retire that you check with the state taxation department.
This is Commander Hanley. Can you go back to the slide with the Coast Guard address for just a second? Thank you.
No problem.
So, ma'am, anyone on the call, in the event that you retire and the Coast Guard is still our pay processing center, you will identify yourself as a PHS retiree and provide them your employee ID number, aka direct access number. Do not give them your PHS number. They have no idea what a PHS number is. So all of us were given those employee ID numbers for this vision of retired pay going over to Coast Guard. So in the event that you are a future retiree, you will identify yourself as a PHS retiree. And the reason why I want you to do this is because, remember, Coast Guard pays their own members, they pay NOAA members, and they pay PHS retirees. So they have a lot of customers. We want to make sure that we get you to the right shop because we only have certain FTEs at Coast Guard that service PHS retirees.
This is Richard Peterson. This is Richard Peterson regarding I'm a retiree for a long time. Have done business with the Coast Guard retiree office or payroll office in Topeka, and they are really great people to work with.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We get about 300 retirees a year. And not all the time I get to hear back from people to see how things are going on the other side, especially when it comes to your money. So thank you for sharing, and it's great to hear that they're treating us really well over there.
One other comment. We get a quarterly newsletter from them, and it is full of all kinds of information, and PHS and NOAA are treated like we are full members of that newsletter.
Thank you for sharing. One other comment before we transition is that right now all of us have an active duty profile in direct assets. Now, I know you've heard that DA is going away, but for those on the phone that will be retiring this year or in 2018, that active duty profile will go away, but you will have a retiree profile. So Coast Guard mails you your very first paycheck. You'll get a stub in the mail, but that's it. They go paperless. So they kind of force you to kind of log on and create that retiree profile, and that way you can pull up any statement that you want. You'll actually have access to just pull it up and look at your pay stubs to see what your monthly income is for however long back that you need to go back and print them yourself. They will also allow you self-service, so you'll be able to change your address, change your beneficiaries, change your federal, state withholdings. Everything that we can't do in DA right now as active duty members will be turned on for you as a retiree, and you'll be able to do self-service. Okay, so let's go ahead and transition to TSP. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and feedback. Okay, so we're not going to spend too much time on this. This is a friendly reminder. Please go to tsp.gov. Bookmark it. Because right now, while we're on active duty, yeah, you can do an in-service withdrawal. But the takeaway from this presentation is what you're going to do with your money when you retire. Ma'am, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so when you retire, you can leave your money exactly where it is. Can you continue to contribute to your TSP through payroll deductions? The answer is no, because you no longer have an active duty payroll slip. However, you can go online and transfer your money in the funds. So C Fund, S Fund, you will be able to move your money around online. So please make sure you know your login and password for the TSP website. So you can do that. The reason why it's suggested that you leave your money exactly where it is because the cost that they charge uniformed service members is very minimum. If you try to transfer your TSP to another retirement account, number one, don't let it touch your hand. Make sure that it goes from TSP to that entity. If it touches your hand, the IRS will hit you in the hand and say, pay us, okay? If you transfer it to another entity, they often will charge you more to manage your funds. Now, sometimes I get a question, well, what if I become a civil service employee? Can I combine my TSP accounts? Great question. I want you to go to the TSP website, and I want you to research that. I know the answer, but I'm going to give you some homework to do. But that's a popular question. But the takeaway here is you can transfer your money, or you can just let it sit till age 70 and a half. Why 70 and a half? Go to the TSP and look at the frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. So, when it's time for you to take out your money at age 70 and a half, you're going to tell them exactly how you want it. You want all of it? You want a partial withdrawal? So these are things that you'll be thinking of as the time nears where you have to make a decision on what you want to do with that money. Next slide, please. This is just another example where you can do a full withdrawal. a single payment, a monthly payment, or a life annuity. So those are some options for you. Please, 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 your homework tonight is to make sure that your TSP beneficiary is exactly who you want it to be. A will not supersede who is listed on your TSP beneficiary form. Please make sure it's the persons you want the money to go to in the event something happens to you. This is very, very, very important. You do not submit this to PHS compensation. You do this directly with TSP. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an interesting one. You can do a mixed withdrawal where you can do a combination of the above methods that we just mentioned. And I think the answer to one of my questions is here. If you have both a uniform and a civilian TSP account at the time that you retire, can you combine them? You may be able to, yes. The best point of contact is TSP directly. Now, I'm going to just pause a little. If you are retiring and you want to do a catch-up, remember, payroll cutoff for active duty pay is typically around the 15th of the month. So if you're trying to make any changes to your TSP, whether reduce it, increase it, or stop it, you need to make sure that you get your TSP form into PHS compensation ahead of time so that they can do what your request is. I would say do it at least 3 months before you're going to retire. That way you know it gets taken care of and it's done. A frequent asked question that I get is, if I'm going to get a lump sum payment for earned unused leave, can I dump that money into my TSP account? The answer is no. Next slide, please. So as I said, TSP is a wonderful resource for all of us. Here's some suggested reading material that you can find, and I definitely would encourage you to bookmark this page when you go to the TSP website. Next slide, please. This slide mentions an annuity calculator. So I just wanted to mention it just in case we have some millionaires on the phone. They say we do have some in TSP, but just another resource for you that they have a calculator. Next slide, please. This TSP thing is going to be a big deal with the blended retirement plan that's coming out in 2018. If you haven't heard, most of us will be grandfathered in our current plans unless you choose to opt in if you have less than 12 years. Remember, leadership will be sending more information to eligible officers who may be able to opt into the blended retirement plan. But they will offer TSP matching to uniformed services for the very first time. So those future Corps officers joining PHS, if you're a mentor and you happen to be mentoring junior officers that are currently in the Corps and that may decide to participate in the blended retirement plan, this is a real steal in the event that they really maximize their contributions because they will be offering matching. Currently, we do not get matching for TSP. Okay, next slide, please.
That's the last slide that I have.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'll take any questions regarding TSP.
So this is Commander Hale. I have a question. I just want to reiterate that. So last time we talked, I think you said we needed to make sure and check on one of our beneficiaries. I think that was for the SGLI. And so you're saying that under the TSP we'd have a different beneficiary listed, and we need to look at that as well.
Absolutely. Now, you may have the same person listed for both the SGLI and the TSP, but not required. It could be a totally different person, but you want to make sure that the person you have listed for TSP is who you want the money to go to. And make sure that your percentages add up. If you have more than one person, make sure that your percentage adds up to 100%, whether you do 50-50 for 2 people or you do 4 people. Make sure the percentages are correct.
Hi, this is Christina Mead. Speaking of SGLI, thank you for bringing that up last week. That was something that was not even on my radar. So I have pulled the form for it, and it looks very different than the original form I filled out almost 20 years ago. But the form number is the same. My question is this: if we need to change our SGLI form, do we just simply upload it to eDocs, or do we need to go through someone at DICPER to do this?
Great question. You need to actually sign this form in ink, no electronic signatures, and mail it to PHS Compensation, where they will insert it into your EOPF under insurance and file it in your payroll folder. Now, the form has been updated by Prudential. Prudential is a life insurance company. So it does look different, but the pertinent information is there.
Thank you for that, because it does say Prudential on it, so I appreciate that. Thanks.
No problem. Happy to help. I like my job. I really do. And I get a chance to talk to a lot of officers. I get a chance to hear a lot about their careers. I get to hear about their families and their dreams and their hopes. And sometimes I even get to hear what they're going to do after retirement. And sometimes they call me up and ask me questions post-retirement, and all of you are welcome to do that as well. The only thing we can help you with is your money. We're going to tell you to call Coast Guard headquarters because they will have access to your retired pay account. PHS Compensation, NAR Separations will have access to your retired pay account. And let me correct myself. That's the Topeka location for Coast Guard, the Pay Processing Center. Coast Guard headquarters is in D.C. Any further questions regarding PST, SGLI?
Commander Bailey, sorry, I just wanted to comment real quick. I put the URL for the suggested reading material back up on the screen for anybody that wasn't able to catch it when we went by.
Now, again, these slides are on the separation seminar on the CCMIS LMS. Remember, we have an HHS LMS, but we also have a CCMIS LMS. And as time permits, I will be updating the slides. So if for some reason a link is broken, please kind of just Google it or go directly to that source and find what you need. Okay, so let's go ahead and transition to the third attachment. Now, I want you to trust but verify this too. The law typically doesn't change when it comes to retired pay. Years for service, months for service, they stay pretty consistent. Okay, so last week we talked about final pay. We talked about high 3. We talked about the redux. So I taught everyone how to go find their retirement plan. So, for the purposes of the majority, most people in the Corps are high 3, high 36. For this example only, we're going to use this chart. It says multipliers using formula and the U.S. Code 10. So this is the Financial Management Regulation for DOD, all uniformed services. And remember, the retired pay includes base pay only. You take your years and your months. So for that base pay, remember, you're going to take your T grade, the highest 36 months of your T grade. You're going to divide it by 36 because we take the average, keyword average, and then we multiply it by the multiplier for years and months. So if you take a look at this screen where it says 20 years, 0 months, and you move to the right, the multiplier is 50%. Most people know if you do 20 years in the Corps, you're going to get 50% retirement pay of your highest 36 months. So I just kind of wanted to put this up. This is not a secret. You can feel free to Google it. And I would encourage you to even PDF it and save it on your desktop, because sometimes people call me and say, Commander Bailey, is it worth staying an extra month? And I got to tell you, I can't make that decision for you, but it may make a difference to you to kind of see where the numbers are. Now, when you call separations, I do not have access to your base pay. I don't know how much money you make. What happens is that the personnel system pulls your total active time. So it gives me the years and months, and I have compensation verify that your high 3 is accurate. So the computer spits out a number, but then we have a human check the number. We provide that information to Coast Guard with all your supporting documents and tell them how much money to pay you. Now, if you call PHS compensation and ask for an estimate of your retiree pay, they will not do it for you. Leadership has asked us not to provide estimated pay sheets anymore because it's a moving target. You may not retire that month. And remember, retirements are effective on the first of the month only. So as we said last week, for example, my retirement credit date is July 2nd, 2007. So when it's my turn to retire, in order for me to get that full month, I need to retire in August. Or if I go 30 years, since retirement is only effective the first of the month, it would be August 1st for me. Okay? Any questions regarding anything we've covered today? Again, this is multiple multipliers using the formula for the U.S. Code 10. You can Google it, and it'll basically tell you what your multiplier is going to be for years and months. We drop days, so days don't count. If you have 29 days, 28 days, you don't get credit for that. So we need a complete year and month. Now, as you see, the longer you stay, it goes up. So, those of you that may not keep your LESs, go to the military pay chart, and it will tell you, it will go back many years, 2007, 8, 9, 10, all the way through present, what your base pay was at the time of, years of service that you had. So you can always go back and look at old pay charts in the event that you don't save your LESs. I have some people that, especially my engineers, I'm married to an engineer, they have spreadsheets, like Excel spreadsheets, where they, put in their base pay and they have the formulas done. So it really depends on what's important to you. I tell people you retire when you're ready to retire, not when someone else wants you to. It has to be your decision. And you don't have to contact us only because you're ready to retire. We talk to people 2 years out, 1 year out. You could just be thinking about it. And when you're ready to kind of inform your supervisor, that is your decision. We do not do that. Okay? You taking the initiative is having that conversation with your supervisor when you are ready. Okay? So I'm going to pause here. It's about 2:43. I'm happy to take any questions. Ma'am, can you put my contact information back up, please?
I sure can.
Thank you.
This is Christina Mead. Oh, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Christina Mead again, and I just want to reiterate. So as far as the pension is concerned, I understand that that's variable by state as to whether or not the pension is taxed. But I just wanted to make sure the federal government taxes the pension based as income. Is that right? So it's in the income tax bracket rather than capital gains or any other type of bracket.
Correct.
Okay.
Another question about that. If you're residing, working as an officer currently in the state of Maryland, for example, that acknowledges PHS officers and allows them to be exempt from state taxes, and if you retire and you're going to move to a state that does not have a state income tax period, is there a grace period from the day you retired until the day you get transferred to your new state.
Is there a grace period by the time you retire and relocate?
Right. So, like, if I'm working in Maryland and I retire, I am no longer eligible for the tax waiver as an officer for the state of Maryland. So let's say it takes 60 days to transfer me, not a transfer, but as a retirement relocation to another state. Does that retired officer now pay 60 days of state taxes to Maryland?
Great question. Well, those of you that are online right now, if you go to the CCMIS webpage and hover over assignment, it will drop down and then go to your right. It says travel and transportation. I believe you have 120 days to declare that new state where you're going to go. Remember, if we're still with Coast Guard, they're going to ask you what state. And they have a little sentence in there that says if your address is different than where you're going to be living, they require like a little statement from you. So you just have to be very careful. I would say consult with a tax person. If you have an accountant that you work with and they know you, and you have a good rapport, I would certainly have a discussion with them. But typically, I believe the grace period is 120 days. Now, if you move 6 months after you retire, I'm sure Maryland will want some money. You might have to do 2 state tax returns. Great question.
Okay, thank you.
When in doubt, contact the state you're moving to, the state taxation office, or if you were going to stay in Maryland for a little while, for example, I would contact the state taxation department in Maryland and say, hey, when would you consider me a resident? And let them tell you.
All right. Do we have any
other
more questions? Any more questions for Commander Bailey?
Okay, ma'am, do you happen to know the next topic of our next
I do. Yep. So we'll meet at the same time next week. That'll be October 17th, and we're talking about survivor benefit plans. We can talk offline to see if that's a good time to fit in the Social Security or if it'll fit in better in one of the 2 subsequent weeks. But the planned topic for right now is survivor benefit plan. And just for everyone on the phone, Corey Butler, Lieutenant Commander Corey Butler, will be your host for the next 2 meetings. She's our Rocky Mountain COA secretary, and so you'll get another link to another Skype from her so that she can be the host of that. And Commander Bailey will be sure to send that to you in an email now that we know it's not transferring with the meeting invite forward.
Okay, great. Those that are on the call, if you happen to be available to join us next week, I want you to Google this form and have it with you when we talk next week. Now, trust but verify, because remember, when it's your turn to retire, we may not be utilizing the Coast Guard as the pay processing center. But presently we are. So we are using their form to elect the survivor benefit plan. So if you bring that form along with you next week, you will have a visual, and I also will include it when I send the slides so that when we're going through the presentation, I'll bring up the SVP form because I want you to see the categories of whom you can select. So just to kind of segue into next week, SVP is you are telling the government, I want to protect my retirement income should something happen to me. If I die, I want to leave 55% of my income to a dependent. Now, dependent means they're in years. That could be a spouse. That could be a child. That could be a disabled child. That can be an adult child. That can be a parent. So when you look at that form with me next week, I'm going to be able to tell you what categories of dependents that you can choose from because you pay for this as a retiree. It is not free. For spouses, it's 6.5%. For children, it's like $1, like, $1 to $12. It's very inexpensive, but remember, you only pay for kids until they age out of years. For spouses, basically they're in there for life, and you pay for 30 years and to the age of 30. So I look forward to sharing more about SBP with you. If you have family members, especially spouses, that want to call into this, because this is the second biggest decision you will make. The first decision is you're going to decide to retire. The second decision is you're going to decide if you're going to protect your retirement income. And what I want you to take away from this is, if you die, do you have other assets that would protect or that would replace your retirement income? And do you currently have life insurance outside of SGLI now that in retirement, if you didn't elect SBP, you would be able to have your family members taken care of? So I'm going to leave you with that. And I'll make sure I send the form, in case you want to Google it. It's the Coast Guard 4700 form. It will say retired pay worksheet and survivor benefit election form. But you can just do a quick Google Coast Guard. So you can put C as in cat, G as in George, -4700. And we'll review that form next week. Currently, we are using this form to elect SPP. Okay, so I will conclude if we don't have any more questions. Again, thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for participating. And the best way of contacting is the PHS Separations inbox. Please always include your PHS number and your telephone number. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Commander Bailey. We really appreciate you hanging out with us all month and helping us learn how to take care of us and our people after retirement. And also thanks to all of you that are on the phone, and hopefully we'll have you on here again next week. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.